Sweet Christmas jive turkeys. It's Mozz, it's Chaz, and we really want to talk about the sound of one hand defending. But here, there are 8 hands in the kitchen of hell, where the devil we know and all of the heroes defend against the defenseless. No, for the defenseless. Don't get defensive. Okay, hey folks, it's me, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey Mozz, so glad you're here. As always, tonight we're doing Season 1, Episode 5, Take Shelter. Electra's loyalties are questioned, Colleen clashes with an old acquaintance, quote unquote, and Luke proves he knows how to take a hit. Directed by Uta Brysowitz. Writers were Douglas Petrie, Marco Ramirez, and good old Lauren Schmidt, hardest working woman in show business, as Lauren Schmidt Hisrich this week. Okay, so this opens up with we see 2 of our loyal hand fingers, the always awesome Madame Gao and White Hat. I believe they say his actual name is Owetu or something like that.
Sawate or
Sawatu, that's what it is.
Right.
Which I believe it's actually the name of a South African ghetto, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Or it's very similar to that. Anyway, we get we see Sawatu's men getting ready. We see Sawato looking very much to the African warlord. We see Gao with her men coming in. And then
she's got the SUV. She's a little bit fancier.
Oh yeah, well she runs she runs with Fisk, so she's got to keep appearances.
And I can never remember his name. What's the Japanese dude? The other finger.
Oh, his name is. It's hard to remember his name because he never speaks English. 1 second, I'll find him.
But yeah, and that dude walks out by himself because, of course, he's a lone wolf,
Yeah, well, of course, man. Because what's the whole point of being an immortal warrior for all time if you got to have an army? That defeats the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. If you got God mode on it, the only reason you do it so you can have more fun.
Well, exactly, and I do think that is we're going weird. He's not actually on the first page of this. There's everybody else, but okay. But like I said, he doesn't talk much, and when he does talk, it's in Japanese. So he's there he is. Murakami.
Wow.
Murakami, played by Yutaka Tekeuchi, and Babs Olusanmokan plays Sawande. Actually, it's Sawande, not Sawatu. So
Sawande.
Okay, so that is that. The fight begins, and of course, one of the things I love about the beginning of the fight is how annoyed the actual superpowered people are at having to fight all the ninjas. It's like, boom, really? It's these and it does make this point that these these are actual superpowered people,
Although they do seem to be, just taking it in stride, almost like they're just annoyed at like the boss asking them to make, 500 copies or something. It just seems like it doesn't seem like something out of the ordinary. It's just like, oh, this again,
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's not out of the ordinary. I mean, Luke Cage has had to take on, 50 men before. It's not the hardest day of his life, but it is. But what it is what's annoying about the ninjas is they do keep on getting their hits in, and although they don't really hurt Luke Cage, it's like it's like when you were in the back seat with your brother or cousin or some other person and they go, "I'm not touching you," you know.
Right.
You know? So I'm sure that's how they see that.
Yeah, but it is interesting that they don't, try any other strategy with these superheroes except for just, hey, let me try punching and kicking and like slicing and dicing. At some point I'd be like, oh, okay, we can't obviously fight them like this. Let's create like a trap to like, incapacitate them or something. But no, it's like, hey, let's just, throw some punches and see what happens.
Well, I think the idea in this is that, first off, you have to remember that they don't really know what they're going up against. I mean, they have this idea that they're superpowered, but, also remember the Hand all think they're superpowered too. They're immortal. They got that chi punch stuff, which honestly, what's her, Gao and her chi punch. That is just awesome. That she is just so cool when she does that. And it's cool that she's like the only one we ever really see, the only member of the Hand we ever see actually really doing that chi stuff.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because we do know Bakudo knows about chi. He read a book once. But Gao's the only one with the actual discipline to say, no. I know how to focus my chi. I know how to do the real magic ninja stuff.
Right.
Makes me want to see what's his name? The master of is it Shun Li, I think? No, Shang Li. Shang Li, the master of Kung Fu. Which they always say they're going to have him show up eventually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, who is, he is the master of Kung Fu, and he is awesome. And he is like, he is what Danny Rand should be. He is this guy. He is like the, philosopher, monk, warrior. But he's not from Kunlun. He's just a guy who dedicated his life to being the world's greatest martial artist and actually achieved it. So we're all looking forward to Shang-Chi coming in the next episode of the next season of Iron Fist and actually make that show a little more watchable.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi's a really cool character. For a character who is very much a 1970s kung fu stereotype, they have made him very cool over the years. Anyway, so everyone's fighting, and
they were already fighting Elektra back at the Chinese restaurant. So, and then all of a sudden, all these other dudes drop in.
Well, yeah, because now everyone's ganging up on them because the Black Sky has weakened them. Not so much. Because that's yeah. No,
my favorite moment there was when Denny tries to be chivalrous and throws himself over Jessica. And she's just like, dude, get off me. That was great.
Yeah. Well, it is, because this is annoying to the actual superpowered people. I mean, and that's the thing to think about. Like Black Sky, Elektra is supposed to be like the greatest thing, and yet really she was just mostly annoying to Jessica and Luke. It's like
I still don't see what the deal is with the Black Sky.
Well, what the deal is that if she's really good at kung fu. Is basically what it is.
Is that it?
And she's immortal, and she doesn't tire. So she basically, the thing about the Black Sky, I think, is the same thing with Captain America. It's not so much that Captain America is so powerful; it's that he doesn't really tire out. He does have that peak human strength and has amazing fighting abilities. And
I don't know, like the way Alexandra builds her, like the super weapon that will win us the war. She's making it out to be like Black Sky is like the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Whereas she's barely just like a fancy a fighter plane or something.
Well, but you know what? That's so to give you the understanding. The Black Sky is the crossbow. and they're
Okay.
in,
Oh.
they're fighting
Yeah,
the
but like,
evil
but
monks.
no, I know she's meant to be the crossbow, but how? What is the mechanism where it is worthwhile to waste your final last little bit of whatever substance you have that brings the five of you back? Literally,
Well,
they wasted.
yeah.
So what? I don't get it. Why?
Well, I mean, I guess the argument is that she believes in this religious prophecy concept, that this is
Oh,
what does it,
interesting.
and I think that is kind of the thing we see with the negative feelings from the other fingers of the hand,
Huh.
because they feel that she's kind of gone too deep into this, and it's an interesting question for the other members of the hand, because one of
Huh.
the things that you do notice about all the members of the hand is that, of course, Alexandra and Gao are both physically older,
Right.
and we don't know why. They never explain it, but they are physically older, and we do think that, and you get the feeling that they both came to it more out of a desire to, and I think we got this with Alexandra when we got Electra's origin story last
Mm.
episode, where she was saying about how before she became immortal, she lost her child, and
Mm.
how painful that was and all this kind of stuff. And you get the feeling that her and Gao, like, I think Gao is actually from Kunlun. I think that's kind of the thing, is that she actually was raised there, and then she sort of got corrupted by Alexandra and these others that led her to leave. And
Mm.
I think the idea is that these other people just wanted to be warriors. They wanted to be
Yeah.
immortal warriors. They wanted to be Iron Fists, and when they realized that these things weren't just going to be given to them, they rebelled.
Mm.
And I think, but the fact of the matter was, I think that Alexandra and Gao, because they were the ones who actually had the spiritual basis for what they were dealing with, wound up in these leadership positions.
Yeah, you can almost see that a power struggle must have been between Gao and Alexandra, and the other members were just like side kicks that each had, and they had to finally come to a point where they realized, hey, we're better together. Let's form a hand. Let's include these other guys. But
Yeah.
the initial power struggle was probably between the two of them.
Yeah, and you do see, throughout it how the three women, or I'm sorry, how the three men, approach their immortality differently. The men certainly are of the view that immortality is for hunting bears, or dominating an army, or creating a cult. I think that Alexandra and Gao are the ones that play the long game. I think that, quite frankly, the finances of the hand are completely run by Gao and Alexandra. I don't think
Yeah.
Sawande, although I'm sure Sawande is a
No.
profit center, I don't think he's ever really doing it.
No.
I don't think he's playing long games. I think he likes commanding an army. He likes being a warlord.
Yeah.
And the other two, they like being a charismatic cult leader, and they like being a bear hunter.
Mm.
Hunt a bear, man. We're immortals.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Even the thing that is the source of their immortality is managed by just Alexandra.
Well, exactly. She's the one that got the authority, but you know what? For what it's worth, it would be very hard to be a bear hunter if you were homeless. It'd be very hard to run your charismatic cult if you didn't really have a dime to your name.
Right.
And honestly, all those men who follow Sawande, they only do so because it's a paycheck.
Well, yeah.
They'll murder you for a paycheck, but that check better not bounce, Sawande. And the people who make sure the checks aren't bouncing are Alexandra and Gao.
Yeah.
So that's also why they kind of always have to be loyal to them. And I think, honestly, I think they'll back Gao over Alexandra, or they'll back Alexandra over Gao. But then, of course, what happens is they wind up splitting each other, and so they keep on trying to murder each other, but they're all immortal. So since neither Gao nor Alexandra will ever let one of the schmucks be in charge,
Right, because that would be the end of the hymn.
Oh, exactly. But we do.
So Matt decides should we move on or? So Matt decides to pull Elektra over for like a personal aside mid-fight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really go over well with the team.
Yeah, because he's lying to them and he's hiding stuff, and nobody likes to be kept out of the loop, especially when people are trying to mutilate you. These guys are dealing with people trying to murder them, and Matt's playing these games. Matt's, he doesn't want to show his face. He doesn't want to do this, and everyone's like, really?
Yeah.
He is, as I've said, he is so the George of the whole group. He is so worried about everything. He just, and everyone else is just trying to do their life, just trying to get through this and take care of what needs to be taken care of. They're not trying to, they're not, they are fighting the hand if they have to, but quite frankly, they're not afraid of how their life will be hurt. Although that does come back to become an issue in this, which is that, I did want to stop for a minute to talk about the Alexandra scene when she's sort of like sneaks in the back during the fight or just before the fight to say, I'm not here to fight the Iron Fist. I want to work with him. Yada yada yada. Keeps on saying, I don't want to have to kill you, Iron Fist. But I don't know. Those threats never seem as credible as they should.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure she has, and maybe that's the point, is that you do underestimate her because she does look like an older woman. But at the same time, you just kind of feel like, that's a lot of big talk for someone who's not actually fighting in this fight, For someone who hasn't actually tried to punch Luke Cage yet. That's a lot of talk.
Yeah, because even Gao, we've seen her get some people up, but I don't know what Alexander is capable of.
Yeah, well, we did see her at one point, I think, like, either she, like, punched Elektra or she took one of the guys off. She's done a couple of things. This is Sigourney Weaver, after all. She can do stunt work, but, but she doesn't really get her hands dirty in that way. She's a much more classic supervillain in that sense. She's very standoffish. But, which would be fine, except she keeps on saying that she is this, she is this great fighter, and, we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, but during the fight, we get this, we basically get the statement that, after the fight's over, after they do, scare everybody off, after they...
Well, Matt sort of has a moment with Elektra where he does get through to her, and she hesitates, and Yorande, what's his name? The Japanese guy, walks out to see what's happening, and she chooses to hit him.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that, of course, this comes back later where he says, at first he thought she was just defending her kill, but now I think, but now I think you actually have betrayed us. And it is this point, as I've always said, the problem with a living weapon is that it actually, can get up and make its own choices,
Right. There's no way to get rid of what's inside the vessel and just keep the vessel.
Yes, and that, of course...
You can't separate those two things.
And I suppose that is essentially, I guess that's what, like, the selling point is. It's your basic Manchurian Candidate idea. You can have a... you can have the Joker on a leash, You can have something that is completely devoid of human emotion and will do what you say. And, not so much is, I guess, the answer to that story.
Yeah, but what's interesting to me is why they would think that that would be the case. In every other version of somebody coming back through the work of the hand, the person obviously eventually remembers who they were or are,
Yeah, I
So why,
mean, yeah,
they seem really dead set on a lot of bad ideas.
yeah. And maybe it has to do with how they came back, or like maybe there was an
Uh,
extra thing to there, or maybe it has to do with the fact that they were black sky. Honestly, it's all kind of weird. There is an argument to be made that maybe they didn't work as hard on the writing of this show as they really should have. One of the biggest problems with Elektra
mm,
is trying to tell her story in a way. Because here's the thing about Elektra: she's actually not the hero in the original story we see her.
mm,
In the original, so like this idea that she's like part of the chase from way back, that's actually the exact opposite of her story. Her
mm,
actual story is that basically after her father gets murdered by the hand, though she
mm.
doesn't know it at the time, she winds up joining the hand because they kind of like what you see in the Colleen Wing story. The
Mm.
Colleen Wing story, where she was the hand and believed it and was that and was willing to be an assassin for the hand, that is the actual Elektra story. But they don't want to.
Interesting.
But what happens is that because the Matt Elektra love story is so popular, they
Yeah.
don't want to. They don't want to have to do that backstory aspect of it, and as a result, I think they kind of have a hard time trying to retell her story if she starts out as if she starts out as a hero, you know, if she
Right.
starts out as just the evil the evil good guy, and then goes
Mm,
full evil.
mm.
It's a harder story than what her actual story is, which is that she starts out as the evil bad guy and then becomes good. And then
Yeah. See,
recognizes her love of Matt. I mean,
uh,
yeah.
it's unfortunate that it has to take a back seat to that stupid love story because,
Well,
yeah, it seems cool, but I think like with the character that they've given us here, her truth is to be a bad mother. You know what? You know what I
well,
mean?
exactly,
And I
and
feel like some of that gets stripped away by forcing this character to become good for the sake of this, pretty average love story. You
yeah.
know?
No, I mean, I very much agree. The problem is that Elektra was written as that love story,
Yeah, I
and
guess.
they're trying to force these. One of the problems with the Defenders in general is they are taking a bunch of characters who don't actually have, except for Power Man and Iron Fist, they don't have a history in the comics together. They don't
Mm,
have a backstory together, and saying they're who are going to be the Defenders.
mm.
The actual Defenders are the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Namor, and I think Silver Surfer sometimes.
Oh, wow.
They're actually supposed to be this cosmic force. And like years later, you had a more street level version with Patsy Walker, Damon Hellstorm, Nighthawk, a character named Gargoyle who was cool. Um,
Mm.
he was kind of like oh, I forget his name, the guy that turns into the demon in DC.
Hellboy?
No, in DC
Oh.
at
Oh.
Terragon. But he's like a professor who found like some sort of gargoyle enchantment, and he could become this gargoyle, with superhuman powers,
Well,
which is cool. Yeah, but the Defenders were cool, but Luke Cage was never a Defender. Daredevil was never a Defender. Jessica
wow.
Jones was certainly never a Defender. She is a fairly modern creation who's most famous for being on the Avengers.
Oh.
And honestly, the whole Jessica Jones story is weird too, because the Jessica Jones in the movies is very different than the Jessica Jones you had very often in the comic books, because aside from her original inception, when she comes back, she's like with Luke Cage, and she's kind of a mom character. And yeah, she is totally not the abusive alcoholic drunk until now that the show got so big. Now they've turned her back into the abusive alcoholic drunk. It is so weird, you know.
Hey, I mean, at least they have the wherewithal to follow what works, you know?
Mm-hmm. I suppose so. But anyway, in this, as we're going through this, we have a nice scene. I love when they're fighting Sawande and Luke gets hit by the garbage truck. That was cool.
Yeah. I love that line he delivers is so fun too. He goes, "They tell me you're unbreakable. Let's find out."
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to that fight, and then we don't get it, which is really, really disappointing. He just gets hit by the truck, and then they end it, but then apparently you find out that they did fight. And man, that would have been a fun fight to see.
Well, you know, actually, I think the point is it wouldn't have been, because it would have been Sawande going, you know, punch, 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 punch. It's like, are you done yet? Punch, 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 punch.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, this is
all right, yeah.
Like, the only thing we know that actually hurt Luke Cage was in Jessica Jones was the shotgun to the head.
Oh, yeah.
You know, although arguably, you know, if you did it close enough, if Sawande had freaking chi punches like Gao, maybe he could have actually done some damage. Because we see the Iron Fist can actually really hurt a Luke Cage too.
Right.
So one thing we can certainly know is Sawande does not have an Iron Fist and does not have chi punches. Yeah, Sawande is just a talker, which we'll see next episode. But yeah.
Well, I don't know that we get much more Sawande after this episode.
No, next episode we get Sawande.
Is episode 5 where they're interrogating him?
No, that's episode 6. Episode
sure?
5, yeah. Episode 5 ends with Luke Cage bringing them Sawande. For those who don't know, we are kind of out of order in this, and we've all watched them, so we do know what happens going forward. But no, episode 5 ends.
No, episode 5, as I'm looking at here, is when they get done with the fight, they go back to the dojo, and they're like, "Where's Luke? I think they got him." And then Luke comes to the door, and he's like, "Hey, I'm totally fine. Actually, I'm better than fine." And they go outside, and the van has Sawande in it.
Yes, and that happens.
That's episode.
That happens
in this episode.
Yeah, that happens in this episode. But they don't have the interrogation of Sawande until the next episode.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, because I just got done watching it, and I don't think he's in the next episode.
What at the end of this episode ends with Electra going back to Matt's apartment.
Right, and right before that is when Stick tells Daredevil, "You got to tell everybody about what's going on between you and Electra." Mm-hmm. And when they get into that heated argument is when Sawande has the opportunity to slink off and stand up, and he's holding, I forget who he's holding as hostage, and then Stick goes, "Yeah, you know what? No," and chops.
Okay, then I'm mistaken. Yes, so that does happen this episode. Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought that happened at the very end of this episode, and I thought that happened in the next episode. But okay, because for whatever reason, I thought that he got Sawande at the end of this episode. But then again, like I said, we're a little out of order. So okay, and like I said, I actually really didn't get a chance to rewatch this one because I watched it last week and I didn't really have as much time as I wanted to. But anyway, so yes, so to sum up, yes, this is Sawande's final appearance.
Yeah.
Because he just wasn't that good at this stuff. And like I said, I think cutting it for time, I think it would have been a neat fight, but I think it would have been mostly... I think what it came down to was when they were doing all the breaking down of the scenes, they decided that, that Sawande was not going to be much of a match for Luke Cage.
Right.
Luke Cage...
Most of the damage that you see on him was probably the garbage truck.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that, it's not the first time he's been in a garbage truck, so it's um
Right.
but they do have to go because they realize, what Daredevil always said was like, all of the people we love will be hurt. So you got to
Right.
go get
Right.
all the people we love. And we get the whole thing with Stick telling Matt, I've been trying to keep your worlds from colliding, which just
Yeah.
another Seinfeld reference. Uh,
Indeed. A George
and
divided cannot
yeah,
stand.
exactly. Uh, and I love the scene where and that is where Jessica has to fight McMurray.
Yeah,
Um, uh,
it does not go well for her.
it doesn't go well for her, although again, Murakami, sorry, Murakami. Again, like I say, I think it is more annoying to her than actually, you know, bad. You know,
Yeah, but I feel like she was also just completely ineffectual with him. Like she could be as strong as she wanted, but if
yeah,
her leverage and her, position of her body and whatever was off, he was going to do whatever he wanted to her.
yeah,
And
it
then
would.
obviously, Daredevil comes and saves the day. And I love the starstruck look on Trisha's face when she sees him. Like she
Oh,
is best friends with a superhero, but now she sees Daredevil and she's like, "Oh my God, it's Daredevil!" You know.
yeah, but that's because Daredevil wears the costume.
Well, that's fair. Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
better, she wants Jessica to wear a costume.
I know. Didn't she? She tried to make costumes for her in the
Yeah,
Jessica Jones
yeah, that,
season.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
That costume they show was actually the Jewel costume. That was their little shout out because that was Jessica Jones's superhero name in the comic books was Jewel. Um,
uh,
but what's interesting about all this is that, yeah, oh no, no, Patsy is super excited about Daredevil because, yeah, she
yeah,
loves superheroes. She wants to be a superhero,
right.
and for what it's worth, that's actually sort of like the overarching plot and theme of her story is that, she was this child star who, when the superheroes became the craze, wanted to get back into the comic books. And, well,
Mm,
not in that way, but yeah, not in like a ambush bug way, but just, wanted to be a part of this new zeitgeist. And she
right.
winds up like stealing the Hellcat suit because uh, oh, what is her name? Greer. Not Pam Greer. It's Tigra. Tigra was the original cat, and
ah.
and she wore this suit, and then she got turned into a tiger woman
Oh.
through magical amulets, and then Patsy Walker got the suit, and then she became the Hellcat, and yeah, and honestly, I want to see her in that blue and yellow spandex because that is going to be cool.
I want to see Jessica and Matt team up for more missions. They are so good together.
They are very much an odd couple. They're very much one's clean, one's messy. Um,
Yeah.
and ironically enough, I think Matt's the messy one because I think Matt is the emotionally messy one, and
She's cut and dry.
yeah, she's cut and dry. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she wants,
Yeah.
and she's not cottoning to your hysteria, Matt.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Sawande does pass away. We get our
Mm.
little attempted we have the hand questioning Elektra, and Elektra gets the whole
Mm.
story and then about who she was and all this stuff, and it really doesn't do much for Alexandra's plans because she goes off and goes back to Mac's apartment
Yeah.
and falls asleep, you know?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can say what you will about the subordinating of her story in that love story, but I think there's actually maybe even something more to it, just in the idea that, you know, it's her ties to her humanity.
Right.
And, it's okay, Benny. Um, Yes, Ben wanted to be in the podcast. I think the reason why, because you have to have a reason why she overcomes whatever the programming is.
Yeah.
And what they give you
Yeah,
is that it's love. True
yeah.
love, marriage.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're gonna make the love story work, I think there's other ways to make it work. Like when they first got reintroduced in I think it was the second season of Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, really interesting and fun because that was something that they weren't supposed to be doing. She still had her heart set on being her own bad self, and he still had his own heart set on being his good self. And they're not supposed to be together. It was like a forbidden love, but with someone that really understands you better than anybody else. So I think trying to get them into a place where they're sorted out and together is a silly idea, and it takes away the magic of what makes their little thing special. So I think you don't need to make her good in order to be with him. They can always have this sort of returning to each other kind of thing where they go off into the world, but they can't stay away from each other. And I think that's way more interesting than making her give up who she is in order to be with him. You know?
Well, for what it's worth, it's not that she's giving up who she is. She's just not being what other people want her to be. Everyone wants her to be, and what I think is the thought process here is that the reason she does love Matt is because Matt's the only person who doesn't tell her what to be.
Yeah, but doesn't he? That's all he does. That's all he does.
He's very passive aggressive about it, so it's hard to do. But everyone else tells her you're a killer, you're this, you're that. Matt says, "Be what you want to be." I don't think
as long as it's not a killer.
Well, here's the thing: it's like if you want to be a killer, that's fine. We probably can't date then. Is I think Matt's point of view is that
but he still would. He still would.
Well,
because she has killed, and
it's like Batman and Catwoman, man. He is. She totally, totally has him wrapped around her cat things. And Elektra's the same way. Matt is your classic good Catholic boy who meets the bad girl. Can't stop being the good Catholic boy. And always wants to show how good of what a good boy he is, and Elektra loves that about him. She loves that he's such a good boy, but at the same time, she also is her own woman and is not going to be the kind of girl a good Catholic boy wants to be with. At the same time, a good Catholic boy mostly wants to be with her because she isn't the kind of girl a good Catholic boy would want to be with. This may come as a shock to you, Mozz, but a lot of comic book writers had very frustrating sex lives, I believe. And that does come out in their stories. Not all of them. I mean, we all know Stan Lee certainly never had a shortage,
Right, I'm sure he cleaned up.
Yes. Stanley. Well, Stanley was always married to his wife. His wife was super hot, so
Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah, but he got to go to the Playboy Mansion and hang out, and he was, you got to remember, man, Stanley in the 70s, he was the PG-rated Hugh Hefner,
Well, I mean, the 70s. It's a whole other thing. It was a whole other world, man.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he cashed it in, That's what Stanley does. Okay. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
Yeah, I think we got to all of it.
Okay. Well, Mozz, we're recording this on Thursday night, and apparently Gotham's about to start. Are you going to be live tweeting with us tonight?
As soon as I figure out how that all works. I just changed my password because I hadn't logged into Twitter in 5 years. So I'll figure it out. If not tonight, then I'll live tweet next week for sure.
Well, that's fine, man. That's fine. Just do @CharlieEsser, CharlieEsser, for the 2 E's in the middle for quality, and I'll find you. And how can people @ you on Twitter?
Well, now that I have a Twitter, it's at Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR. You can find me on Gmail under that or on Facebook.
Okay, and of course, always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our Mozz and Poz once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And that, dear friends, brings us to the end of Don't Get Defensive. Always remember, the best offense is a good defense. Good night.